Good morning, everyone. Huge welcome to the first BSGA sign surgery for 2026. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Our host, as always, Craig Brown, is chair of the BSGA, and Linda Edwards, who is managing director. Good morning. I'm going to give a little wave. Morning. So last year we had our last episode in December, and we had a bit of a review of what went on in 2025. So we thought it kind of makes sense to start the year with what's coming up this year. How are we going to build on the momentum that we developed last year, and what are we going to be doing in terms of events and other activities through this year? Now, if anyone has a question or a comment, pop it in the chat or raise your virtual hand, and I will get to you, and you can put your questions to Craig and Linda. But Craig, should we start with you? You were in the last issue of SignLink. Had your predictions for 2026. And a big part of this was engagement. Do you want to expand on this a bit?
Yeah, again, I think we go back to the past of the way that lots of trade associations are viewed, that it's just something that you talk to us when there's a problem, or it's just, should we say, and I use the phrase, big companies are looked after and the little people are forgotten about. But at the end of the day, we've kind of come round over this last decade of actually trying just to support the community as a whole. And we've got very much engaged with the trade shows, very much engaged with the suppliers, because the suppliers are there to support the industry. Yes, it's a commercial thing, but it's something that, us as a whole, maybe we've stood away a little bit because we don't want to see that we're supporting one company or one business over another. And I think we've just all taken the decision that really it's about getting out there, talking to people, having the opportunity to engage face to face rather than behind a screen, ironically as we're talking here, or over the phone. And the events like Sign and Digital that are now about to come up, in the past we might have attended or had a small booth. Now we're very much becoming involved with the day-to-day activity. So this year we'll be part of a sign makers village. Again, we'll have Perry Signs will be there showing sign writing and gilding. We've got Chris from CVI doing architectural wrapping, Paul Hughes doing more techniques of application. So there's a hook there to bring people in to look at services, how they might improve. But we're going to be hosting a communal area between those stands where we'll be doing kind of interviews, real life discussions about things that are actually happening with people. Obviously tapping into your expertise, hopefully with a few video interviews as well that we can share beyond to those who aren't coming. But it's very much a case of actually being where the sign maker is. Last year we were lucky enough to be invited along to William Smith's events. Around 100 sign companies and staff attended that event. We did the same with Spandex at that summit event, and we'll be doing the same again this year. And again, the sign and print show at the end of the year. So we're very much trying to be open to anybody who's actually hosting an event. Ideally, they're members, because obviously we're a not-for-profit. We are reasonably tightly funded, and that's just by the nature of the way we try to bring the fee structure down to make it more affordable rather than being based on turnover. And it just means that we can hear what's happening at the industry. At the end of the day, you guys are at the coalface. The people on our board are at the coalface. I'm kind of one step back now, if you like. I went through that semi-retirement of selling the business, so I'm kind of very much reliant on hearing from people who are actually in the sector of what support they need, what they see coming down the line. So that's where I'm talking about engagement. We're keeping our ears open to what's actually happening. We're hosting the events calendar. And again, education sector, prime example of actually, we have to be looking at the talent pool that's actually coming in. And, how do we do that? We help the educational facilities. But again, sometimes they need to reach out to us. Is there anything you'd like to add, Linda? Sorry.
No, not at all. I'll just echo what Craig has shared. It's very much about us being visible, being present. Ultimately, that's what Craig is talking about. And we spent last quarter of 2025 looking at ways to reduce barriers to entry more than anything else, really. So to reduce those barriers from from us as an association with our community, and what does that look like, and finding out a little bit more about what is required of us as an association. So we are current, we are of use, I think, more than anything else. And so ultimately we are realigning what our purpose is and how we can be best use to our industry.
The other thing I'd like to add is the fact is we've got we had a very tight nucleus of directors who are voted onto the board. Through COVID, I think we lost a few people, some through kind of business choices, some people deciding to actually retire. And I think, again, it's for us, it's a case of actually we're looking to take and bring on fresh blood, but we want to make sure the people who come in, I say, it sounds horrible, we want them to be validated and actually the role they're coming into, rather than just saying we've had in the past, and I'll go back when I first joined, I think sometimes being part of the association was good on your CV and not necessarily elements that were needed to take the business on. I think now what we want to do is, if we're going to actually bring people on, we want to be able to utilise their skill sets, make them feel valued, actually make sure, and it might be the fact that we change some of the directions we're actually looking at because of the input we're actually getting in from our base. We're here to support the industry, but we're here to support the members that support us. That doesn't sound too wishy-washy. It's my clumsy way of explaining we want fresh blood, and obviously there are several people we've had very short discussions with, but I think we need to follow those up this year as we look to get that enthusiasm within the sector that we've built over this last couple of years to get the association back and relevant, I think.
It sounds obvious. Would you say that being able to be at these, because they did slow down rather dramatically a few years ago, and it's taken a while to get to the point where there were regular open days again. Is this a real benefit to you as the BSGA to get in the mix of this and really eyeball to eyeball with people?
Well, I think it's a huge investment in cost and time, and I can only look at, William Smith's event was run at that facility. It was incredibly well organised, but it did mean where they are based, probably it limited a little bit the people who were prepared to travel over a few hours. Spandex have done a roving event. They've said it's equally hard sometimes to get people to come, because at the end of the day, there's no cost for the person to attend. So if their day all of a sudden becomes busy, what suffers? Well, I don't attend the event. So it's a really difficult balance, because I found both events fascinating. I think I'm reasonably well travelled, and I guarantee that I picked up 3 or 4 things that I wasn't aware of just by sitting and talking with people who were involved in the sector. Now, would I then be able to take it onto my business? Well, I think the answer is yes, because I then shared that with other people. And that's the thing that I sometimes get frustrated with trade shows. People turn up and you can see a post on LinkedIn. I was there, I was round the floor within an hour, and I was in a car park paying my £20 and I've gone home. Well, actually, if I've set the day aside to attend an event, I'm actually going to make sure I rinse that event for all it's worth. I'm going to talk to everybody that I can, because there's those little conversations that might take you to find out what's coming down the line. A new product that's actually being launched, or would you be part of a beta testing? All the things that actually happen to the people who engage in those conversations. And as I said, it's you're giving up a day of your time. If you've already committed to coming out, make the use. Linda's got a wonderful rinse it for all it's worth. And I'm a great believer in that, because if we don't, these events will go away. The trade suppliers will decide, no, it's not worth our time. And I think that we all suffer from it. So sorry if I'm banging that drum. I just sometimes, I want to encourage more of the things, not less. But we've got to support it as an industry to make it happen.
I think with something like exhibitions as well, if you're investing the time to go, it makes a lot of sense to do a bit of work beforehand and try and pre-arrange some meetings, so you've got some hard pillars to go and to people you're definitely going to go and see, and make the most of that day, and then things will grow out of that. And I was just going to say, people like yourself, Nathan, that having a live event is great for somebody relatively new to the industry to make those connections that last a lot better than they do over a screen. There's a lot of talk just on a personal level with teenagers spending too much time on screens and being unable to build proper relationships. Well, it kind of works the same here. It's great to have the opportunity to do something like this, but you just can't be actually getting out and meeting people properly. That's my thoughts on it anyway. Does anyone have anything further to add on events and face-to-face stuff?
I think I'll just back that up, to be fair, Jack, because I know that obviously I was very early on in my days when I went to the RPIA conference, where Luke was so kind to invite me, and that was, yeah, don't get me wrong, it was a bit scary, but it was also so powerful. You know, you just get so much knowledge from these kind of things, and speaking with different people. As someone new into the industry, you could potentially think, oh, I'm too new to go to this kind of thing because I won't know anyone, but you will actually probably get, but you will get more information than you will realize by attending these events. Absolutely.
Brilliant. Thanks for that. Thank you. Good. Let's move on a bit. There's something else that you put in your predictions, but I'm going to run by Linda, if I may. It's the super sector evolution. Now, not everyone will know what that is. So, Linda, would you mind just explaining what that is? How it's evolving in the sign industry specifically?
Well, absolutely. So I'm sure each of you are all more than aware that it was an article in our newsletter in December. So I'm mindful about not repeating all of the information that we were shared there. But ultimately, the super sector initiative has been established regarding the construction industry and all of the trades, the allied trades that come together with under said umbrella, and it was brought about to address some of the concerning incidents that happened within the construction sort of industry sectors, as it were, but also with regards to the Building Safety Act of 2022. And myself and David Allen, who is our current president at the BSGA, we joined the super sector. Gosh, I'm going to say the autumn, so autumn of 2025. And that was to basically bring our industry to said table, said party, said conversations, to ensure that not only were we in a position to be able to support and address the current CSCS situation for our industry, but also to be part of any future developments within, like I say, within the allied sort of trade community. But also for our own, as we're more than aware, the signage industry is an unregulated industry, and we need to be looking at how we can collectively address how we standardise who forms part of our industry, what that looks like on a daily basis, but ultimately what that looks like outside of our sort of immediate circle as well. And I think on occasion, we ourselves perhaps don't necessarily raise our voices when we need to or when we should. Which can impact us in that wider stakeholder community, but also in like I say, in that sort of internal community. We have a very small pool of formal training opportunities available to us at this moment in time. That is certainly something that I'm working alongside Craig and the rest of our colleagues at the BSGA to address. But ultimately, it's to ensure that we are part of those fundamental conversations moving forward, building those relationships, those working partnerships with the allied trades, but also recognising our own value and what that looks like for us moving forward, how that can best inform our formal structure of training, accreditation, certifications, and so on and so forth, that we can create frameworks internally to attract new talent, recognise existing talent, but also ensure that we're present. And like I say, we are part of those conversations where important, significant decisions are being made that do impact our industry, that perhaps in the past we've been a little bit late to the conversation with, to be honest with you. So yes, that's where we are at the moment with it.
It sounds like this is a long game.
Absolutely.
And something that we can develop as we go forward. Lawrence, you've got your hand up there.
Only just to say, it's absolutely fantastic that the BSGA are doing this. In the signage industry, it does sometimes feel we're the ones at the end of the project, we're the ones forgotten about, and then suddenly, other people's forgetfulness that we're needed suddenly is our problem. So it's fantastic that there's this team committed to, make sure we are heard and we're part of that conversation. So yeah, I just wanted to flag that and honestly thank you. It's nice to hear and nice to see that you're doing it.
Thank you, Lawrence. And have no fear, I have a very small piece of paper floating around my desk, and your name is definitely on that. So be prepared.
That's quite all right.
You're quite right. Unfortunately, we do fall victim more often than not of other people's poor time management and lack of budget, dare I say, also on occasion. So we need to be there at the forefront and that fundamental planning stage, as opposed to an afterthought. Shall we put it politely? Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I look forward to hearing further developments through the year on this. It sounds a really important project, so good stuff. Now, Craig, I'm going to go back to you because your article again talked a bit about AI, and I know it's a sort of hot topic and everyone's got an opinion on AI, but what is it that's more significant in our industry?
Yeah, it's one of those things. You've got lots of buzz phrases, and obviously AI. I think a lot of us think about pictures that have been, produced with the sixth finger to show that it's actually been done by somebody else. But we're talking now about generative AI and immersive technologies. So they're things that in the past would be prohibitively expensive to do. So use the example of a wayfinding system. You're talking to a client about how it might work. AI has now made it easier to actually walk a client through the room, through the building, with the signage actually in place. So it's when I was talking about it at the turn of the year, it kind of came about. Q Branding have been talking about that, done their first job where a client had created the artwork and it was ready to use. And we've all had it where a client has kind of come in with shall we say, a crudely drafted copy of what they want to have on a vehicle or a shop front that's kind of created in Office or whatever. This had actually been generated and was actually ready to rip and to print. And that's the process that he was going through. My issue, and I suppose for a lot of us, is suddenly the client feels that they've taken one of the elements away from us, so therefore the price should be much less because they've done the creative element. They don't necessarily understand how to take their artwork and actually manipulate it in a way that we can actually use it. But what Nick was saying was that this was ready to go. And I was trying to get to the bottom of whether it was the client's understanding or is the AI technology that had actually been tested enough that had learned to actually to put that into a format. So as I said, I think AI is here. We know it is. It's actually about how do we take it on board? Again, being at the Science Express convention this year, talking to the people who are running the Corebridge software, an American company, they were talking about using AI within their pricing software. So as you drive back from the clients, you actually tell your software to get on with getting the quote ready because you've actually shared the information, and it will go away and look at what it's done previously for that client. And actually your quote is 90% of the ready by the time you get back to the office before you send it out. It's all people who are taking the technology on to another level. So whether that counts as immersive or not. The other term that I've heard, and again, probably this last 2-3 months, is 3D data visualization. Who loves a great buzzword? And again, that's actually, and I use this analogy with Jack, that's for thick-nosed who like me who struggle with a spreadsheet. So basically, it takes the data and puts it into a format that you can see by getting 2 more calls a week. Actually, this is what then drops down to the bottom line, and this is what it does. But actually, the impact that then has on your production is so it's creating a picture for what you need. So there's questions that you should be asking yourself as a business owner. The AI interaction is reminding you and prompting you to take care of. So I don't think there's anything necessarily to be frightened of. It's finding the ways that you can adapt it to your business. And I think there will be elements that you pick up, and yeah, that's a lovely gimmick. Or this really does enhance. And for me, anything that actually enhances the visualization, specifically how someone's project actually looks. We're a visual industry at the end of the day. Giving somebody a line drawing probably isn't where we now need to be. It is actually kind of going on. So again, I don't know. Again, Lawrence, with your clients, customers, has their expectation grown of the presentation before they sign on the dotted line?
A lot of what we do is repeat work with existing customers. So it's just manipulating their logo. We've used it bits for if we're doing overlays onto a photo we've taken, and it's been an awful day just to make it a nicer day. Simple things like that, which just lift the mood of the actual image. We've not had the need to go too deep into it, but it is something that can be done. I am looking elsewhere using AI, very early stages, literally discussing it yesterday, about creating our own AI bots for certain roles within the business, where I was thinking, we might need more staff there, more help, more support. And actually, it was only in conversations with other people I know, one who's a specialist in AI, said, well, it might not be a person, it might not be somebody sat there. It could be, we look at creating our own specific AI bot, which just manipulates it in a way you want, that might just assist some of the current roles within the office. So yeah, it's got a wide range, and personally, all for it. You've got to know what you're putting in and understand it yourself, so you know that it's spitting out the right things. But yeah, I'm not against it at all.
And there's, again, this for me is part and parcel of this expertise, sharing, hearing where other people have actually taken it, what element they've actually picked up. The other one is e-commerce. I mean, a lot of this actually will have a very basic opportunity for clients to buy on our websites, but again, there's that immersive element where actually the information is actually taken from the client. They create their imagery, it gets pulled down. I mean, HP 2-3 years ago at one of the festival shows was showing the back end of their software, where someone create wallpaper at distance. It would actually order the material for you. It would make sure that you had enough ink in the printer to be able to put it, and then put it into your job queue. Now it's just those things being taken on and brought into the real world. So again, I suspect most of us are nervous about it because we feel things are being taken out of our control. Whereas actually, if we look at ways that enhances our business, and we don't have to take it all, we can take those bite-sized chunks that take the business and listen to what our clients want. As you said there, it's if you've got a client that's just a repeat of what you've already done, it's a simplification, but it might be a case that you see an opportunity that actually, well, if this station was actually improved with these graphics, maybe I'm doing an upsell. Would you like large fries with that, sir, is the old phrase, isn't it?
I think it's interesting. One of the things that AI, I mean, it's accelerated so quickly, and it's going to keep doing so. But we were talking earlier, weren't we, about sort of technologies that were launched maybe 15, 20 years ago that didn't quite take off because they were too sort of data intensive and too difficult to do. And we were talking about augmented reality, which is now back on the table because AI development means that it can be built in and used much more cost effectively and efficiently.
Not dropping names into it, but Mersons have actually, as far as I'm aware, have adopted that technology. They have the headsets with their clients to walk them through the airports and bits and pieces, and to show them what they can, how wayfinding would work. They've used the technology to get their clients to buy into it even more. But they've invested time and staff training to make sure that it actually works. And I suspect it kind of sometimes is the work that we do, is that whether that's a worthwhile investment. But keeping an eye on it is probably the thing that should do. And again, there are a number of trade shows that are out there that aren't technically sign related that we'll touch on it and maybe just follow up on the articles that are written about it and do a little bit of investigation from time to time. I'm certainly trying to keep a finger on it, on the pulse of it, if you like. But I don't claim to be an expert. I'm just an interested voyeur, is probably the best way of actually describing it.
I think for our industry, or we've got to kind of look at what is AI, what is safe from AI. I mean, a lot of, we've been talking about engagement, going face to face with people. That takes that out of it. A lot of the work that sign makers do, you unless you develop robot people, Androids, that'll be it. Your skills are very much not going to be taken over by AI, and that's something to probably really double down on and improve. And that, I guess, ties in with the education.
One of the
question.
things I always hear from and I'll say small to medium-sized sign companies is the fact that they lack the time in the day to create these elements. I think if you can use that as partly as a labour saving device, but we're actually selling product that actually is, I would say, is unique. The fact is I can't necessarily put this sign on another building. It's specific for that particular client. So that ability to have that one-to-one conversation needs to be enhanced. So all you're using is you're developing something, and then I'm taking it to sit in front of the client still to show them. That's probably where I'd say we can enhance and still use our skill set. So that's a clumsy explanation again. But
No, I think that's fine. I mean, I'm thinking of Nathan. That's an industry that he's probably fairly AI safe, isn't it? You're very much about people to people. I know AI is used for CVs and responding to job advertisements, but really it's all about your sort of engagement with people. So you're fairly AI safe. I'm sitting here looking worried. I'm not going to lie. Content development is it's getting better and better. However, I'm nearly retired, so I'll be all right. Okay. Maybe, Craig, we kind of run through the main points. Was there anything else in your sort of 2026 crystal ball that you wanted to bring up?
Well, it wasn't. I mean, we touched on sustainability, and again, funnily enough, it was. I hosted a panel last week, and interestingly, the topic originally was the carbon footprint that we create, and everybody on the panel kind of be careful, eyes rolled a little bit and said, well, it isn't really about your carbon footprint. It's kind of the sustainability of the products you're actually using. And I walked in and I've got a PVC tablecloth banner that I've used a number of times. It's probably not far from the end of its life. But one of the gentlemen of one of the suppliers, oh, you can't come into a trade site with a PVC banner. And I went, well, why not? And their sustainability manager backed me up. So, well, no, if you've used it a dozen times, a non-PVC product would probably wear out before that. So, no, well, I'm very much into sustainability, and that really kind of piqued my interest. The fact is that if we've got this closed loop, as they say, now I can talk to a customer about the product I'm using that's the most beneficial for them. It might not be the most environmentally friendly product. Again, we're talking about, a lot of us are using oil-based products to start with. But if I can show the longevity would mean that I only have to do this once rather than 10 times, all the bits and pieces that come surely is beneficial. So this is that education process again. And I know the phrase greenwashing is used. We have to be careful that we're just kind of seen to be doing the right thing without actually following through. But it was just nice to have a sensible conversation rather than going to a position where it's actually we're just talking about planting trees, or we're just talking about the chemicals that are actually used and are very bad for the planet. Well, we acknowledge that sometimes that has to be in place, but it is that whole process, so we know where it's come from, how it's going to be used, and then how it's going to be disposed. And if we dispose of it for you, maybe we can then supply you the new product to replace the stuff that's been disposed. So it's that kind of that cycle, that built-in cycle that keeps you in contact with the client, and that kind of excited me as much as the carbon footprint topic to start with. Sorry again if I'm waffling, but that was part of last year's predictions. More elements on sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, so much of sustainability is about numbers. It's about data. It's about the small changes and what they impact at a bigger level. It's interesting talking about greenwashing, because this year it's the rules on not being able to just say something is eco-friendly, something is biodegradable. You have to back that up. You have to back that up with some sort of certification. And that's coming in finally this year. It's been in development for a while. I think by September that's going to be binding, certainly from the EU. But if it's binding in the EU, it's binding for everyone, because everyone's trading across the world with that. So I think people really have to look at a lot of their marketing materials, their practices, across the board.
to actually get them closer with your supply chain again. This is the beauty, because the information is there and at your disposal, and it's knowing what are the right questions to actually ask. And again, without dropping names in, Richard Pearsign's part of his role has been the sustainability manager. As he said, he's getting clients coming to him specifically because he's being seen as the expert in that field. So, that's another attribute that LinkedIn brings: professionalism. And I'm posting on a topic that I'm passionate and I know about. Again, he's not shy at sharing bits and pieces that he's done in the past. And again, hopefully, that might be something we can do to our wider community. These are the things that businesses are seeing, and this is an attribute that has benefited their business. We then make a commercial decision whether we take it on board.
I think, I see a lot of news from people, and I know most companies are making an effort. And because everyone's making an effort, things are improving. There's a lot of doom and gloom around it. But I was reading the other day that a lot of us will remember that the good old ozone level layers, that hole has closed over the Antarctic. So things are heading in the right direction in some respects, but there is an awful lot to do, because really it's about the contamination of air and water and the soil that is really the thing that we now need to keep focusing on. So there's a lot out there. It's definitely going to be a big topic, as always, this year. But I feel like this is the year that it'll shift on another level, because you can't just make random claims about something being eco-friendly. I think that'll drive the bigger names to really start sort of putting things in. Linda?
Just to add on to Craig's statements, I think also as an association, we have a responsibility to be able to create realistic, achievable frameworks for certainly much smaller businesses to work within. And yes, it's certainly about products and materials that are available, but it's also about our working practices as well. So although dare I say, the much smaller signage organisations such as myself and others, we aren't able to, I'm going to say compete in those leagues, but we aren't able to enter into those sort of initiatives or schemes. But we are able to address the way in which we work and which we operate, and that may be something as simple as how does one work out their logistics, and how do we ensure that we're making best use of taking a van from our place in West Sussex all the way up to Birmingham? Are there other jobs that we can stop off on the way? Are there other deliveries that we can make? So yes, it is about products and materials, but it's also about how we operate. What do we do with our offcuts and scraps? Use scraps, it's a sign maker's term. How do we can't necessarily get a huge container, fill that up and have that taken away, but we can look at how we can perhaps share that within our local community to schools, nurseries, scouts and guides, and so on and so forth. So we're doing our own small bit in our own way to best support initiatives moving forward. So I think, again, as an association, we have a responsibility to be able to showcase that irrespective of how large our organisations are, we are all in a position to be able to make a positive impact. And we just need to make that, like I say, timely, realistic and achievable for the wide spectrum of our community.
Fabulous. Yeah, thank you for that. Well, absolutely right. Okay, Craig, do you have any? I think we've got time for one more prediction. I'm going to go to you, and if you don't, I'm going to throw it open.
Goodness me, I'll throw it open to the audience, whether they see anything coming down the line. They think that we should be chasing.
I'm going to, while people are thinking, I'm going to throw one in, and it's based really on a couple of conversations. I think 2026 is going to be, it's been quite tough for quite a few years, for sure, for everyone out there. I do think this year we're going to see a little, don't want to call them green shoots of recovery, but I think this year is going to be a much more positive year all round. I think there's a lot happening that is going to feel like we're going to shift to the next level, and people can just feel a little bit better, a bit more comfortable about their businesses, their lives, and that's my view. But by the end of the year, we will feel a bit better. Yeah, it's a big prediction. Does anybody disagree? Hardly. I hope not. Lawrence, were you going to say something? Unmuted.
Yeah, I think what I was starting to see for us is a bit more freedom for creativity, which was nice. The second half of the year, it's the part I really enjoy, being able to develop new things, use the same materials different ways. And it just felt at the end of the year, the second half, a lot of our long-standing customers just having one kind of focal piece of signage, a key piece, which was just, allowing a bit more creativity, something a bit more special, not just a flat board. We started doing a lot of even just the fake foliage and incorporating LEDs and things like that. It just seemed that a lot of people were having at least one area that was a bit more interesting, a bit more creative, which was, a pleasure to see and very exciting to be involved with. So I'm hoping that trend continues for us and we're allowed to be, have the fun part of the industry as well.
Good. Well, that ties in a little bit with what I was saying. I think that requires a little bit more budget, a little bit more time and focus. And that means that their business has to be doing better as well. So I think hopefully that's a good sort of sign that things are on the up. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, you're going to respond to that, Craig? You look like you were about to.
Because at the end of the day, last year, my New Year's resolution was to relearn a skill that I'd actually got. And I've found that, a bit like Lawrence just mentioned, that creativity, that time where all you get to focus on is the bit that you're trying to get out, and all this, and then it branches off. Then you come back and it refreshes you, and other things then spark. So again, once the creative juices start to flow, I think other things within the business benefit as well, because you look at things in a slightly different way. So anything on that, I'm very much into visualization. If I can't see it in my mind's eye, I really struggle with it. So I'm all for that. All for that.
Fantastic. Okay, well, look, thanks everyone for joining us. Next month we'll be at Sign and Digital, so we'll be doing this in person around various tables. If you can get along, it's a fantastic opportunity to see lots of sign making skills in action, but also a chance to sit down and chat to lots of different people. And we very much look forward to seeing you there. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you much. Thanks everybody.